Ava Quinn didn't believe in second chances. Not for herself. Not after what happened back home. Not after the way her mother looked at her the day she left. Not after the story made the rounds, and she became that girl, the one who ran, the one who broke rules she wasn't even old enough to understand. So when the email came, live-in position, discreet, high compensation, private residence, she didn't ask questions. She packed what little she had and took the train to a neighborhood that didn't have cracks in the pavement. The house was quiet, too quiet, like no one actually lived in it. Glass and stone. Black wood panels. Cameras tucked under the eaves like blinking eyes. He didn't greet her when she arrived. Just a woman in a gray skirt and tighter smile. Mr. Vale is rarely seen, but you'll be expected to be seen even less. Ava didn't flinch. I can be invisible. The woman raised an eyebrow. Good. He likes invisible. For the first 2 weeks, she barely saw him. Lucian Vale was a shadow in a suit. He came and went without sound. Left coffee cups on the counter without a word. Disappeared into his study for hours, days. But still, she felt him. In the way the thermostat reset to her preferred temperature after the first night. In the groceries that suddenly included the exact tea she drank. In the way the cameras turned off when she sunbathed in the backyard, like he was giving her privacy no one else noticed she wanted. Or maybe watching. That possibility lingered. The first time they spoke, it was past midnight. She'd had a bad dream. She thought she was alone when she slipped into the kitchen barefoot, oversized shirt clinging to her thighs, still shaking. But he was there. Lucian Vale, sitting in the dark, reading, waiting. She froze. Sorry, she whispered. I didn't know you were. Do you always apologize before you breathe? He asked, voice low and smooth. She swallowed. I'll go back upstairs. Sit. She did. Not because he asked, but because something about his voice made her forget how to say no. They didn't talk. Not for a long time. She made tea. He read. Silence stretched thin between them. Then, you were dreaming. A statement, not a question. She didn't ask how he knew. It wasn't real. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. She looked at him. His face was unreadable, all sharp lines and distance, but his eyes, gray and cold, softened at the edges when he looked at her. What do you dream about, Mr. Vale? Power, he said, and what it costs. After that night, he stopped pretending she didn't exist. He'd nod when she passed him in the hallway, speak in short commands, eat, rest, lock the door. Once, he touched the small of her back when she moved too close to a hot pan. Just a brush. But it felt like a brand. She told herself she was imagining it. The heat, the awareness, the way he watched her when he thought she wasn't looking. But she wasn't. The moment everything changed was almost nothing at all. She had gone out, just for an hour, to get air, to feel like a person in a city she didn't belong to. No one knew where she went. No one ever did. But when she came back wet from unexpected rain, cardigan soaked, hair clinging to her neck, he was waiting. In the foyer, arms crossed. Expression unreadable. I thought this house ran on silence, she said, half joking. Lucian didn't laugh. You didn't take your phone. She blinked. You track me? I pay for your safety. You pay for my silence. Same thing. She stepped forward, chin up. Do you watch everyone this closely? His voice was quieter now. No. Then why me? He didn't answer. Not with words. Just stepped forward, lifted a hand, tucked a piece of damp hair behind her ear like he'd been wanting to do it for weeks. Because you don't know what you're worth, he said. And you do? I know what it feels like to want something and never touch it. Her breath caught. Lucian, go upstairs. You're the one who told me to come in. Go. Upstairs. Or what? He didn't move. But his voice dropped to something dangerous, intimate. Or I'll show you what it looks like when I stop pretending I don't want you. Silence. Then she turned and walked away. But not quickly. Not scared. Just shaking. That night she couldn't sleep. Not because she was afraid, but because for the first time in years, she wanted to be seen. And she was starting to believe he didn't just see her. He was waiting to claim her. Ava tried to reset the lines. The next morning she rose early, cleaned the kitchen, avoided the study, avoided him. She made herself small in the house again. Unseen. Uncomplicated. The girl he hired, not the girl he almost touched. But the house remembered. The thermostat still stayed 2 degrees warmer when she walked in. Her favorite tea still appeared on the top shelf. And Lucian Vale was suddenly everywhere. He didn't force conversation. He didn't have to. Just his presence, quiet, calm, precise, was enough to pull at her. He passed her in the hallway with a brush of his shoulder, paused behind her in the kitchen, reaching for the exact drawer she was already using. And once, she walked into the library to find him standing at the window. He didn't speak. But he didn't move either. He just waited, like a shadow that refused to fade. By day 4, she snapped. She found him in the lounge, a glass of whiskey untouched on the side table beside him. If this is some game, you can stop, she said, arms crossed tight over her chest. Lucian didn't look up. Game? You're everywhere, watching me, hovering, but you don't say anything? He flipped a page in his book. You want me to speak, Ava? I want you to either want me or leave me alone. Not this. He looked at her now. Eyes sharp, cold, controlled. You think you'd know the difference? You don't get to make me feel watched and then pretend I'm imagining it. I'm not pretending anything, he said evenly. You're the one pretending. Every time you walk into a room like your skin isn't burning. Her jaw clenched. You're my boss. That didn't stop you from coming into the kitchen in that shirt at 2 a.m. Her cheeks flushed. That didn't mean anything. No, he said. That meant everything. She turned to leave. But his voice stopped her. Your contract is up for renewal next week. She froze, slowly turned back. What? He stood, slowly, deliberate. I extended it. 6 months, full benefits, a 20% raise. You did that without asking me? I didn't think you'd say no. You don't own me. No, he said, but I own the world you ran to when yours fell apart. That cut, sharper than he intended. She took a step back. So this is what? Control? Lucian didn't blink. This is me giving you a reason to stay, Ava, because I don't want you to leave. Then say that. Don't dangle money or power or contracts. Silence. Then softly, I want you to stay. Her chest tightened. Why? He stepped forward. Because no one's ever looked at me the way you do. And how's that? Like, I'm not a monster yet, but you see how close I am. She should have walked away. But she didn't. Because deep down, she knew. He was right. She saw every version of him. The cold, the calculating, the fractured. And he saw her, too. Not just the pretty assistant with a haunted past, but the girl who never got to stop running. He didn't kiss her. Not yet. But he reached for her hand, grazed it, held it like a question. And she didn't pull away. That night, she didn't go back to her room. She lay awake on the couch in the upstairs lounge, staring at the ceiling, waiting to feel like a fool. But all she felt was seen. Not safe. Not yet. But seen. In the morning, there were 2 cups of coffee on the kitchen counter. His usual black. And hers milk, cinnamon, honey, exactly how she liked it. The mug was warm in her hands, but the note under it was warmer. 1 line, written in sharp, perfect ink. Stay, not because you owe me, stay because I finally asked. L. And for the first time in her life, Ava didn't want to run. Not from the house. Not from the man. Not from herself. Lucian didn't touch her again. Not for a week. Not after the hand-holding. Not after the note. Not after the night she spent on the couch downstairs with his name echoing in her head like a warning and a prayer. But he didn't ignore her either. He was just watchful. Like a man circling something fragile. Like he was waiting for her to break first. Ava knew the feeling too well. She settled into the new version of her life with quiet disbelief. The contract was renewed. Her job description hadn't changed, but everything else had. He made excuses to pass her in the hallway. Sat with her in the evenings, reading across the room but never not listening. Asked how she slept softly, offhand, as if her answer meant more than he'd ever admit. And once, after she sliced her hand while chopping ginger, he wrapped her palm in a silk handkerchief and didn't say a word about the blood on his cuffs. Just looked at her like it gutted him. She didn't mean to fall for him. It wasn't like the movies. No dramatic first kiss. No slow dance in the kitchen. No flowers on the pillow. It was the opposite. It was stillness. It was safety. It was knowing that she could break in front of him and he wouldn't flinch. And that kind of love? The quiet kind? It was worse than the fairy tales, because it crept in unnoticed. And by the time you felt it, it had already changed you. The first time he told her the truth, it wasn't during a moment of intimacy. It was during an argument. She had come home late, past 11, from a bookstore and a walk that turned into an accidental hour of freedom. Lucian was in the foyer when she returned. He wasn't angry, just cold. I told you to tell me when you leave after dark. I'm not your property. It's not about owning you, Ava. It's about keeping you. There's a difference? Yes, he said, stepping closer. One is survival. The other is obsession, and I don't know which one this is anymore. She stared at him. You think this is obsession? Don't you? No, she said quietly. I think it's fear. I think you're terrified of being known. He froze. You don't know me. Then tell me. He looked away. You don't want the truth. Try me. He took a long breath. Something in him flickered, a wall, cracking. There's a version of me no one sees, the one that didn't grow up in boardrooms or black cars, The one who clawed his way out of something violent, ugly. That version never left. He turned his gaze back to her. And if you saw all of him, you'd leave. She didn't blink. That's not love, Lucian. That's your trauma talking. It's my reality. And I still haven't left. That silenced him. Because she hadn't. Not after the warnings. Not after the mood swings. Not after the moments when his need for control brushed up too close against her need to breathe. She was still here. And the scariest part? He didn't understand why. He started sleeping less, pacing at night, leaving notes on her door instead of words in the hall. Did you eat? Don't forget the key. Deadbolt sticks. You can leave whenever you want. I just won't stop waiting for you to come back. She caught him once. At 3 a.m., standing outside her bedroom door. Not knocking, just existing. Like her presence was the only thing holding him upright. You okay? She asked. He didn't move. Didn't meet her eyes. Do you believe people can be made of two halves? He asked quietly. You mean good and bad? No, I mean the part you show and the part you chain up in the basement. She stepped closer. Are you afraid I'll find your other half? He looked at her then, and said something she never forgot. No, I'm afraid you'll find him, and love him more than me. Ava didn't answer. She just reached out, took his hand, led him down the hallway, to her room, not for sex, not even for touch, just for silence, together. They didn't kiss that night. He lay beside her like a man afraid of his own shadow. Like if he touched her, he'd break the fragile thread between need and ruin. So she held his wrist, felt his pulse, felt it race, and whispered, You're not a monster, Lucian. He didn't respond. But his hand gripped hers like she was the only thing tethering him to what little light he had left. After that night, he stopped pretending. He sat closer, spoke softer, let his hand linger too long on her back when she passed. And once, just once, he looked at her across the room and said, You're not mine. Then quieter, But I want you to be. Ava never answered out loud. She didn't have to. Because later that week, she took off the necklace her ex gave her years ago and left it on the bathroom counter. And the next morning in its place was a black velvet box. Inside, a thin silver chain. Simple, elegant, no note, no pressure. But when she put it on, Lucian watched from the hallway like he'd just won a war without lifting a weapon. Ava used to think falling in love felt like flying, like weightlessness, freedom, open skies. But with Lucian Vale, love didn't feel like flying. It felt like being pulled under. Not violently, not all at once, but slowly, inescapably. Like the air around her shifted the moment he looked at her and forgot how to pretend he didn't want everything. He was watching her more now, not with curiosity, with intent. In the mornings, he sat across from her at the kitchen table, reading the paper and asking questions that sounded casual but weren't. What were you dreaming about last night? Who were you texting? That smile, who was it for? He never raised his voice, never told her not to go out. But when she did, he was always waiting, at the top of the stairs, near the door, pretending to read while his jaw tensed with every passing minute. And one night, after she came home later than usual, she found him in the hallway, sleeves rolled, shirt unbuttoned just enough to make her stomach tighten. You don't answer your phone anymore, he said. I didn't hear it. You were with someone. She froze. Excuse me? You don't smell like wine. You smell like cologne that doesn't belong to me. That was new. That was bold. She tilted her chin. Do you think you get to monitor who I spend time with? Lucian took a step forward. I think anyone who puts their hands on you should understand that you're not available. Her breath caught. I didn't realize I'd been claimed. You haven't, he said, voice low, but that doesn't mean you're unprotected. The next morning, she found the man she'd gone out with just a friend had been dropped from a project Lucian's company oversaw. No warning, no explanation, just gone. She confronted him that night. He was pouring whiskey, calm as ever. You ruined his contract. He's lucky that's all I did. You don't get to control my life like that. I'm not controlling it, Lucian said. I'm clearing it. There's a difference. You think you can make decisions for me? He stepped forward. No. I think you keep letting men take pieces of you because you're afraid of what you'll be when you finally belong to someone completely. Her voice shook. I don't belong to anyone. You will, he said. You already do. She slapped him. Not hard. Not with hatred. With panic. Because something in her had just cracked, and she didn't know whether it was fear or the terrifying realization that she wanted to belong to him too much. Lucian didn't flinch, just stepped closer. Hit me again if it makes you feel in control. You don't scare me. No, he said, but how much you want me that terrifies you. She kissed him. Finally. It wasn't soft. It wasn't sweet. It was a collision of guilt, heat, fear, and longing that had nowhere else to go. He kissed her back like he'd been starving. Hands in her hair, mouth claiming, and when he pulled away, he didn't ask for permission. He gave her a truth instead. I would burn everything for you, Ava. Don't ask me to be good when the only thing that ever made me feel was the moment you walked into my house. That night, they didn't sleep. They didn't undress. They didn't speak. They just sat her between his legs on the floor of his study, back against his chest, his arms wrapped around her like chains she chose. And she understood something then. He wasn't protecting her. He was possessing her. But not like a thing. Like a part of himself he hadn't realized was missing until she walked in and breathed life into a house that had been dead for years. In the days that followed, he grew sharper with everyone but her. Snapped at employees. Canceled meetings. Refused interviews. But with her, he was steady. Soft in the mornings. Quiet in the evenings. Always within reach. And when she finally asked why he hadn't tried to sleep with her after everything, his answer was simple. Because I already have you. I don't need to rush the part that matters least. One afternoon, she found him on the phone in the library, voice tight. No, if they leak that, I want the whole board replaced by morning. No apologies, no corrections. We bury them or I walk. He ended the call and turned to find her in the doorway. She didn't speak. He didn't explain. But later that night she asked, What happens when you choose me over the world you built? Lucian looked at her like the answer was obvious. Then I build another world, one where I don't have to pretend I don't want you in every corner of it. Ava knew what kind of love this was. Not safe, not soft, not convenient, but it was real. and maybe for once in her life that was enough. Ava still believed she had room to breathe, even after the kiss. Even after the whispered promises and heat-thick stares, and that night on the study floor where Lucian didn't touch her but unmade her just by staying. She believed she could slow this down, that maybe if she kept her head, she could decide what this was on her own terms. But Lucian Vale didn't do slow, didn't do half. And he certainly didn't do waiting. The shift happened on a Tuesday. Rain soaked the city, heavy and gray. She was supposed to go to a gallery opening with her friend Leah, one of the few people from her old life who didn't look at her like she was something tragic or dangerous. Ava had already slipped into a dress, black, clean, modest. But when she came downstairs, he was waiting. Lucian, leaning against the kitchen island in a dark button-down and no tie, sleeves rolled. He looked at her like she'd just done something unforgivable. "You're leaving. It's not a date, just a friend." "A man?" Her spine stiffened. "Does it matter?" "Everything about you matters." She crossed her arms. "Lucian, cancel. You don't get to make that call." "I don't need to," he said. "Because you already know what I am, and you're still trying to pretend I'm something you can tame." He didn't yell, didn't raise a hand. But his presence filled the entire room, filled her, swallowed every inch of space between choice and consequence. "You kissed me, Ava. You let me hold you. You let me in. And you think you can walk out in that dress and play pretend in someone else's spotlight like you're not already mine? We never agreed on anything. That doesn't make it less true." She left anyway. Didn't look back. And for 2 hours, she tried to pretend it didn't matter. Laughed with Leah. Sipped champagne. Let the lights and the music and the small talk wrap around her like armor. But when her phone buzzed and buzzed again and again, she finally pulled it from her clutch and looked. "Lucian, come home. Now. You don't need to play at freedom when you already chose captivity." Her hands went cold. She stepped outside to breathe. And he was already waiting. Black car, rain dripping down the windshield. Window cracked just enough for his voice to carry. "Get in the car, Ava." "You followed me?" "No, I just never stopped knowing where you were." She got in. Not because he told her to, because her legs moved on their own. They didn't speak the entire drive home. But when they got inside, the silence shattered like glass. "You don't own me, Lucian, don't I? You said I had a choice." "I did. I still do." "Then what was tonight?" "Tonight was a reminder," he said, stepping closer. "That freedom isn't walking out. It's knowing who'll catch you when you fall." "So this is about control?" "No," he said. "It's about truth, and I'm done letting you lie to yourself." He took her face in both hands. Not rough, not soft, just certain. "Tell me you don't feel it." She opened her mouth, closed it. He stepped closer. "Tell me you didn't think of me the entire time you were gone." She didn't answer. He smiled, slow, dark, devastating. "Then stop pretending you need time. Lucian, I've already given you more than anyone else ever has. Patience, space, silence, and you keep taking pieces of me like you don't know what you're doing. I don't want to lose myself in you. Then let me be the place you find yourself." She kissed him this time. Hard, desperate. Like it was the only way to keep from being devoured. And he kissed her back like a man who'd waited his whole life to taste something he never thought he'd deserve. That night, they didn't stop. There were no pauses, No hesitation. He took her like a storm, and she let him. Afterward, in the dark, he traced her spine with slow fingers and whispered, "You're mine now. I won't say it again." "You didn't say it the first time." "I didn't have to." When she woke, the silver chain he gave her weeks ago was gone from the nightstand. She found it back around her neck. Clasped tight. New. This time with a charm. One word etched into it. Kept. Ava didn't run. Not because she couldn't. Because she didn't want to. She wasn't his secret anymore. She was his decision. And part of her had known that since the moment he first told her to stay. Ava still went where she wanted. That was the lie she told herself. She left the house in the mornings, took the long way through the park, bought her own coffee, answered emails on her own phone. But every path curved back to the same truth. Nothing in her life existed outside Lucian Vale's gravity anymore. It showed up in the smallest ways. The way security guards nodded to her before she introduced herself. The way shop clerks already knew her name. The way invitations stopped being suggestions and became expectations the moment Lucian decided she should be there. She hadn't asked for any of it, but it had been arranged anyway. The first time she really felt it, the weight of it was at the fundraiser. Lucian didn't ask her to come. He simply said, "Wear the blue dress. We're leaving at 7. She should have pushed back. Instead, she changed. The room was full of power. Senators, donors, strategists with teeth sharpened behind polite smiles. Ava felt them notice her the moment she stepped in beside Lucian, not as an accessory but as something claimed. Hands shook his, eyes flicked to her, lingered, and the way Lucian held her fingers firm at her lower back, thumb pressing into the place where her spine curved, wasn't protective. It was declarative. "She's with me." A woman cornered her near the bar. Perfect hair, perfect teeth. "You must be the assistant." Ava smiled. "I am." The woman's gaze dropped briefly to the chain at Ava's throat. The word etched into silver. Kept. Her smile tightened. "Enjoy it," the woman said lightly. "Men like Lucian don't keep things forever." Ava didn't answer. She didn't have to. Because Lucian appeared at her side instantly, hands sliding into hers like he'd sensed the threat. "Is there a problem?" he asked. The woman shook her head, stepped back. "Of course not." Lucian didn't look away from Ava as he said, "Good, because anything that belongs to me stays." That night, Ava stood in front of the mirror for a long time. The dress was expensive, the jewelry flawless. She looked untouchable. And for the first time, the thought unsettled her. The house changed after that. Not physically, but energetically. Lucian stopped pretending there were lines left to cross. He answered calls in front of her now. Let her hear the way he dismantled people with calm, precise words. Let her see how fast things moved when he decided they should. And every time she asked, "Is this okay?" his answer was always the same. "It is because I say it is." She tried to reclaim something. Just one thing. She applied for a class downtown, writing, 2 nights a week, no connections, no favors. She told him at breakfast, "I'm going to start something of my own." Lucian didn't look up from his phone. "You already have." "No," she said, "something that doesn't involve you." That got his attention. He set the phone down slowly. "Everything involves me now, Ava." "That's not healthy." "Neither is pretending you still live in the world you came from." She swallowed. I need space. Lucian stood, walked to her, didn't touch her, which was worse. You don't need space, he said quietly. You need certainty. And you have it. From you. From me, he agreed. She went to the class anyway. Sat in the back, took notes, tried to breathe. For 90 minutes, she almost felt normal. Until she walked outside and saw his car, idling, waiting. He didn't speak during the drive home, didn't scold her, didn't accuse. He just reached over at a red light, laced his fingers with hers, and squeezed once. Hard. I don't like surprises, he said calmly. And I don't like sharing. I'm not something you can lock away. No, he replied. You're something I can't afford to lose. That night, she asked him the question she'd been avoiding. What happens if I decide this isn't enough? Lucian didn't hesitate. Then I'll change the world until it is. Her chest tightened. And if I decide to leave? He cupped her face. Not gently. Not roughly. Final. You won't? She should have been afraid. Any sane person would have been. But standing there held so completely in someone else's certainty, Ava felt something dangerously close to peace. Because she had spent her whole life making choices alone. And now? Someone else was choosing for her. The realization came late. Not in a moment of conflict. But in bed, staring at the ceiling while Lucian slept beside her, one arm draped over her waist like a boundary she no longer questioned. She thought about the house. The city. The way doors opened before she knocked. She thought about the chain around her neck. And understood the truth she'd been circling for weeks. She hadn't been trapped. She'd been absorbed. In the morning, she stood in the doorway watching him dress. Perfect, controlled, untouchable. She said, Do you love me? Lucian paused, turned. Love is a luxury, he said. What I feel for you is necessity. That's not the same. It's stronger. Ava nodded. Because somewhere along the way, she'd stopped asking whether this was healthy. She'd started asking only one thing. Could she live without it? And the answer terrified her. Because it was no. She walked into the kitchen, poured coffee, touched the counter where he'd once told her to stay, and finally admitted it to herself. This was still her life, but it was his world. And she wasn't standing at the edges anymore. She was already inside it. Ava didn't announce it. Power, she'd learned, didn't need speeches. It moved quietly through decisions, through absences, through the refusal to be where someone expected you to be. So she didn't argue when Lucian kissed her goodbye that morning. Didn't flinch when he reminded her about the evening schedule. Didn't mention the meeting he'd arranged for her without asking. She waited. At noon, she packed a bag. Not everything, just enough to prove a point. She left the house without her phone. That mattered. She walked, took the long route through streets Lucian didn't usually touch, bought a coffee with cash, sat in a public place where no one knew her name. And for the first time in months, she felt something like her old pulse return. She breathed. The call came 3 hours later. Not to her, to the cafe. The owner answered, looked at Ava strangely, held out the phone. It's for you. Ava's stomach dropped. She took it. You made your point, Lucian said calmly. Did I? She asked, standing. Because I'm not done. A pause. Come home. No. Another pause. Longer. I won't ask again. That's the problem, she said. You never do. Silence. Then, you wanted to know what power costs, Lucian said. Now you're about to. By the time she reached the house, it was already happening. Cars. Lights. Movement. Not chaos precision. Men in suits she recognized from fundraisers, from closed-door meetings, from the rooms where decisions were made and never explained. Lucian stood at the center of it all, jacket off, sleeves rolled, phone in one hand, gaze locked on her, the second she stepped inside. He ended the call with a word. Enough. The room emptied. Just like that. Ava stood in the foyer, heart hammering. What did you do? She asked. Lucian didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. I canceled the deal you didn't know you were the face of. Her breath caught. What deal? The one that would have put you in rooms I don't control, he said. The one that would have made you think you could build something without me. You used me. I protected you. You decided for me. Yes. The honesty hit harder than anger ever could. She stepped closer. You don't get to take my choices away and call it love. Lucian met her gaze without blinking. You don't get to take my world, stand at the center of it, and pretend you're still a guest. I never asked to be the center. You became it the moment you stayed. The silence stretched. Thick, electric. Ava felt it, then the edge. Not fear. Clarity. I'm leaving tonight, she said. Lucian didn't move. No, you're not. You don't own me. I own consequences, he replied, and I won't let you pay them alone. That's not protection, she said. That's a cage. Lucian took a step forward, then stopped. For the first time since she'd known him, he hesitated. Do you think I don't see what this costs you? He asked quietly. Do you think I don't know what I'm asking? Then why do it? Because letting you go would destroy me, he said, and I won't pretend otherwise. Ava's hands trembled. And what about me? Lucian's voice dropped. If you leave, I won't chase you. I won't touch you. I won't stop you. A beat. But everything you think you're walking back into, every door you believe is still open, will close. That's a threat. That's reality, he said. Power doesn't beg. It balances. She swallowed. So I stay? And what? Then I dismantle the parts of my world that hurt you, he said. Not all at once, not cleanly, but I will. And if I don't? Then I lose the only thing I never learned how to replace. She stared at him. This wasn't romance. This wasn't safety. This was a bargain made at the edge of a cliff. Ava realized something, then something that steadied her hands. Lucian wasn't offering her a cage. He was offering her leverage. And leverage, if you knew how to use it, could be power of its own. She set the bag down. Not a surrender. A decision? I'll stay, she said. But things change. Lucian's jaw tightened. Name them. No tracking, she said. No decisions about my life without my consent. And you don't isolate me to keep me. You want boundaries, he said. I want agency. A long silence. Then Lucian nodded once. Then understand this, he said. If you take your power back, you take responsibility for the fire that follows. I already have, she replied. I just stopped pretending it wasn't mine. That night, they didn't touch. They stood at opposite ends of the room, two people who finally saw each other clearly. Not as rescuer and rescued, not as owner and kept, but as forces. Equal in danger. Later in bed, Ava lay awake while Lucian stared at the ceiling. She reached for his hand. He let her. Not because he needed her. Because he chose to. And in that moment, she understood the cost. Power wasn't something you held. It was something you paid for, every day, with awareness and risk and the refusal to look away. She wasn't free, but she wasn't owned either. She was engaged in a war of wills that could still end in ruin or something like peace. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, two people learned the most dangerous truth of all. Love didn't erase power. It revealed it. The house felt different after the rules were spoken out loud. Not quieter. Not softer. Clearer. Ava noticed it in the pauses where Lucian used to fill space with certainty. He now waited. Where he once decided, he asked. Where his presence had pressed, it hovered. It unsettled them both. Because power, once named, no longer hid behind instinct. She tested the boundaries carefully at first. A dinner with Leah, no explanation beyond, I'll be late. A walk alone after dark, phone on silent, route her own. A morning spent at a cafe writing instead of answering messages. Lucian didn't follow. Didn't call. Didn't send the car. When she came home, he was there, reading, composed, watching her like a man learning a new language. Did you enjoy yourself? He asked. Yes. Good, he said, and meant it. The simplicity rattled her more than his old intensity ever had. The real test came a week later. An invitation arrived addressed to Ava Quinn, not assistant to Lucian Vale. A panel discussion at the community center. Small, local, unimportant to anyone who measured worth by proximity to power. She placed the envelope on the table between them. I want to go. Lucian glanced at it once. You don't need my permission. I want your support, she corrected. He leaned back, fingers steepled, eyes steady. Then you have it. She searched his face for conditions. Found none. The night of the panel, she stood backstage with trembling hands and a borrowed blazer that didn't quite fit. There were no cameras, no donors. Just folding chairs and a microphone that squealed when she adjusted it. She spoke anyway. About leaving. About starting over. About the quiet violence of being decided for. She didn't mention Lucian. She didn't have to. When she finished, the applause was uneven and sincere. And for the first time since she'd entered his world, Ava felt something expand that wasn't borrowed. Lucian waited in the car. He didn't comment on her speech until they were halfway home. You didn't need me in that room, he said. No. But you wanted me outside it. She nodded. That's the difference. He considered that. Then smiled small, genuine, unguarded. You're teaching me restraint, he said. I'm teaching myself choice. There were setbacks. Old habits clawed back in moments of stress, tightened jaws, clipped commands, a hand at her wrist that lingered a second too long. But now, Ava noticed. And when she said, that's not okay, Lucian stopped. Every time. Not because he feared losing her, but because he was learning how not to. One afternoon, she found a document on his desk open, unsigned. A restructuring plan. A real one. It shifted power away from the center, introduced oversight, removed the quiet levers he'd once pulled alone. She touched the page. "You don't have to do this for me." Lucian closed the file. "I'm not," he said. "I'm doing it, because if I keep ruling by instinct, I'll eventually destroy the one thing I don't want to lose. And if it costs you?" He met her eyes. "Then it finally costs me something real." That night, they stood in the kitchen long after dinner, not touching, just breathing the same air. Ava spoke first. "Being chosen feels powerful," she said, "but choosing myself feels dangerous." Lucian nodded. "Dangerous things change the world." "I don't want to change the world," she said. "I want to keep myself." He stepped closer, not to claim, but to listen. "Then keep yourself," he said, "and stay with me only if you want to." It was the hardest sentence he'd ever spoken. She heard the cost in it. She didn't answer right away. She went upstairs, opened the drawer, looked at the silver chain, the word that once felt like safety, then threat. She unclasped it, left it on the nightstand. When she came back down, Lucian noticed immediately. His face gave nothing away. "Does that mean you're leaving?" he asked. "No," she said. "It means I'm staying without it." A beat. Then he nodded. "Okay. No bargaining. No conditions. Just acceptance." Weeks passed. The world didn't end. Doors still opened, but now, she knocked on some of them herself. Names were spoken, but hers stood alone more often. Lucian still moved power, but with restraint she could see, and influence she could feel. They argued less. When they did, it was about pace, not possession. One morning she woke before dawn and watched him sleep. For the first time, she didn't wonder who she was to him. She knew. Not a secret. Not a prize. Not a shield. A woman who stayed because she chose to. And when she finally slid back into bed and felt his arms settle around her, not as a boundary, but as a question, she answered it with her own hand, lacing their fingers together. Equal. Later that day, she took the train alone. No driver, no escort. She texted him from the platform. "I'll be back tonight," he replied. "Take your time." She smiled. Because now, when she returned, it wouldn't be because she was kept. It would be because she wanted to come home. Lucian Vale had always known exactly who he was. A man who moved rooms without standing. A man whose silence cost people their careers. A man who never needed to raise his voice because the world leaned in when he spoke. Control wasn't something he used. It was something he was. And for most of his life, that had been enough. Until Ava stopped needing it. The test didn't come from her. It came from the world he'd built. A leak small, precise, devastating. Not about money, not about politics. About him. A former associate went public. A carefully worded article. No accusations, just implications. Power abused, influence blurred, lines crossed quietly and legally. It wasn't enough to destroy him, but it was enough to force a choice. The board wanted a statement. Damage control. A clean narrative. And at the center of it all was one unavoidable truth. Ava Quinn. He didn't tell her right away. That was his first mistake. He handled calls, issued denials, calculated outcomes. Old instincts rose easily. Protect the center. Remove the variable. Control the story. It would have been simple to send her away. Frame it as distance, safety, time. The version of him from 6 months ago would have done it without blinking. But Lucian felt it now, the difference. The absence. Because the moment he thought of making that decision for her, something in his chest locked tight. And for the first time in his life, power tasted like fear. Ava found out anyway. She always did. She stood in the doorway of his study, phone in hand, eyes sharp and steady. "You're going to erase me," she said. Lucian looked up slowly. "No." "The article doesn't name me," she continued, "but the timing does. The silence does. And you're already moving pieces. I'm protecting you." "You're protecting yourself," she corrected, "by deciding I'm collateral." That word hit harder than any accusation. "Is that what you think I see you as?" "It's what you've always done when the cost gets high," she said quietly. "You absorb the damage. You disappear the problem." "You're not a problem." "Then stop trying to solve me." Lucian stood. This wasn't a negotiation. This was a reckoning. "If I step back," he said, "they'll come for you harder." "Let them," Ava replied. "I didn't choose you because you were untouchable. I chose you because you stopped touching me without asking." Ava. Silence stretched. He realized then that every tool he'd ever used, leverage, threat, charm, was useless here. Because the one thing he wanted most couldn't be forced. "What do you want?" he asked. The question felt foreign on his tongue. Ava didn't hesitate. "I want the truth," she said, out loud, in the light, "even if it costs you." That could end everything. Or it could finally make it real. The statement he released the next morning wasn't strategic. It was honest. He acknowledged the power he held, the mistakes he'd made, the systems he'd benefited from. He didn't deny Ava. He didn't hide her. He didn't frame her as weakness or scandal. He said one sentence that made the board furious and the public very quiet. "I'm not stepping back because I was exposed. I'm stepping back because I chose to." Resignations followed. Meetings dissolved. Power shifted. Not all of it, but enough. Ava watched from the kitchen as he packed his briefcase for the last time. No entourage. No calls. Just a man removing armor he'd worn too long. "You don't have to do this," she said. Lucian closed the case. "I do," he replied, "because if I keep pretending I can love without losing control, I'll lose you." She studied him, not searching for dominance, for truth. "What happens to you now?" He smiled faintly. "I find out who I am without an audience." The world didn't collapse. It reoriented. Lucian lost reach, lost access, lost the illusion of inevitability. But something else replaced it. Time, space, the unfamiliar weight of decisions that didn't come with guarantees. Weeks passed. They argued. They adjusted. Some days, Lucian was restless, hands twitching, mind racing. Other days, he seemed lighter, almost amused by how small things suddenly felt large. Ava noticed it all, and stayed. Not because she was kept, because she was choosing. One night, as they sat on the back steps watching the city breathe, Lucian spoke into the quiet. "I used to think love was another form of control," he said. "That if I held something tightly enough, it couldn't hurt me." Ava leaned her head against his shoulder. "And now I know love is the one thing you can't fake," he said. "Because the moment you try, it leaves." She didn't respond with reassurance. She didn't need to. She just reached for his hand. And he let her. Not as a claim. As an offering. Lucian Vale had ruled rooms. But this quiet surrender, this choice to stay without chains, it was the only power he'd ever earned. The world didn't end when Lucian Vale stepped down. The headlines quieted. The calls stopped. The house emptied of staff, schedules, suits, and shadows. He no longer walked into rooms like he owned them. He walked into the kitchen barefoot and made her eggs. And for Ava, that meant more. Their days weren't soft. They were real. Lucian took up running. Ava took the writing course full-time. They argued over coffee grounds, closet space, how much silence was too much, and whether they were healing or just rebuilding over the cracks. But when she raised her voice, he didn't raise his. When he grew cold, she didn't retreat, she waited, and he thawed. They were learning each other from scratch. Without contracts. Without fear. Without the burn of performance. He never asked her to move in officially. She never needed to. Her shoes stayed by the door. Her books lined the hallway shelves. Her body curled into his every night, not from duty or fear, but choice. It was messy. It was quiet. It was theirs. One rainy afternoon, she found him on the back porch, watching the garden. The man who once rearranged cities now trimmed lavender like it mattered. "You miss it?" she asked. "Sometimes," he said, "but not the way I thought I would." "How do you mean?" "I thought power was my purpose. Turns out it was just my armor." "And what's underneath?" Lucian glanced at her. "You." They didn't talk about marriage. Or timelines. Or neat endings. They didn't need to. Because they both understood something now. What they had could not be reduced to a label. Could not be posted, proved, or defended. It was private. Untidy. Sacred. Months passed. Ava's name started to circulate not as a scandal, but as a voice. Her writing was honest, unflinching. She didn't name Lucian, but she told the story anyway, of how it feels to be held too tightly by something you wanted. Of how choosing yourself doesn't always mean leaving someone else behind. Of how control and love wear the same skin until you learn how to feel the difference. It resonated. People asked questions. She didn't always answer. She'd already survived the truth. That was enough. Lucian read her work in silence, and never asked her to soften it, not even when he recognized himself in every shadow. "They'll know it's you," she said once. "Good," he replied. "Let them see what love looks like when you have to earn it." They still lived in the same house, but it didn't feel like a fortress anymore. It breathed. Ava filled it with music and open windows. Lucian filled it with time his own, given freely, not parceled out like currency. They hosted friends, burned dinners, learned how to laugh mid-argument, learned how to leave the room without slamming doors. One night, they returned from a small reading of Ava's essay collection. The theme, love that doesn't ask for permission. She was quiet in the car, fingers twitching. "You okay?" Lucian asked. "Yeah," she said. "I just never thought I'd write about us and still feel whole." "You thought telling the truth would break it?" She looked at him. "Didn't you?" Lucian didn't smile. "It already broke once," he said. "But you didn't leave. That's when I knew it wasn't fragile, just real." Later that night, she asked him, Do you still think I'm yours? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he lifted her wrist and kissed the inside of it, right where her pulse beat loudest. No, he said, I think I'm yours. There was no proposal, no public declaration, just a shared life, a shared bed, a quiet, sacred understanding that fairy tales weren't the only way to write an ending. Sometimes the better stories were the ones that knew how to bleed and keep breathing, the ones that didn't tie up neatly, but stood and stayed. And so they did. Two people who once mistook control for love and silence for safety, now building something that saw every scar and loved because of them, not despite.